Good morning, everyone. I would like to get our meeting underway this morning. This is the Niagara Regional Police Services Board meeting for Thursday, the 25th of July. I'll call the meeting to order. Any declarations of conflict of interest by any board members? Not seeing any. We're going to be a little bit different on the agenda than what is in the document because we have a number of guests and a very important presentation to be made. But before I start, I'll remind everyone in attendance that the Police Service Board meetings are being live streamed, and the video recording of today's meeting will be posted on the board's YouTube channel shortly after. The board also wants to acknowledge and honor the land upon which we gather as the historic and traditional territory of First Nations people. In particular, we recognize and thank the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples for their stewardship of these lands over the millennia. We also wish to thank all First Nations peoples in Canada for their ongoing and important role in caretaking the lands beneath our feet wherever we travel on Turtle Island. So at this point, we have a very special presentation. Not to take anything away, I will ask Chief McCullough to make the formal presentation and lead us through it. Chief?
Good morning, and thank you very much, Chair. This morning I have the distinct honor to recognize Sergeant Bill Scholnels for 50 years of dedicated service to our community and to the Niagara Regional Police Service. William Melvin Scholnels, sorry about that, Bill, I had to let everybody know your middle name. More commonly known as Bill, was first hired by the City of Welland Police Department on March 27, 1969 as a cadet. This time he was 18 years old, making $4,000 a year. For perspective, July 20th, 1969, the day that Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to walk on the moon. Woodstock ran from August 15th to August 18th, and Pierre Elliott Trudeau was in his second term as Prime Minister. Note, this is 1 year before the Niagara Regional the Niagara Regional Board of Commissioners of Police was officially established to initiate the changeover from the 11 existing municipal police forces to the new Niagara Regional Police Force, and the name later changed to the Niagara Regional Police Service. Bill Scholnels progressed through the probationary constable process, eventually becoming a first-class constable on January 1st, 1975. He worked uniform patrol in both Welland and Fort Erie, and his interest in community engagement became clearly evident. In 1979, Bill Scholnels attained a position in the Fort Erie Detective Office, where above his regular investigative assignments, he was also the youth branch coordinator, and his commitment to community-based policing continued to strengthen. He remained in this position until his promotion to sergeant in 1985. I started in 1984, so Bill's been a sergeant almost as long as I've been on the service. At that time, he was transferred to Port Colborne to be the sergeant in charge of the detective office before returning back to Fort Erie in 1988. Remained in Fort Erie until 1994. He became the community policing coordinator for the Ridgeway Crystal Beach Community Policing Initiative, and he carried this passion for community engagement and community-based policing throughout the rest of his policing career. Bill Scholnels was affectionately known as Mr. Fort Erie and recognized by his supervisors as demonstrating the model community policing program in the region for the countless hours, both on and off duty, that he dedicated to the Ridgeway Crystal Beach community. After a long tenure in Fort Erie, Bill Scholnels was transferred to Niagara Falls in 2012 as the 2-district administrative sergeant, then in his 44th year of employment as a police officer, where he remained, and he still remains in that position today. In this role, Bill Scholnels was successful in creating operational plans and organizing events such as the Tragically Hip concert with 22,000 attendees, the grand opening of the Outlet Mall, which had over 260,000 visitors in the first 5 days, and numerous other high-level political events and functions. During his career, Bill Schoenels has been formally recognized numerous times for his involvement in criminal investigations, receiving numerous chief of police commendations in high-profile cases such as bank robberies, armed robberies, as well as an arrest which led to the clearance of 250 break-and-enters across the region. He's also been recognized by his supervisors as demonstrating exceptional work performance during the Peace Bridge truck diversion, which was caused by the aftermath of the September 11th, 2001 attack, and his assistance in the Maloney homicide investigation. Bill Schoenels has also received numerous letters of recognition from members of the public, from demonstrating exceptional compassion and empathy as a very sensitive investigation to illustrating impressive professionalism and leadership for his commitment again to the Ridgeway Crystal Beach community. Bill Schoenels was also the recipient of the Canadian Merit Award in 1978 and the Judge Donald Scott Memorial Award in 1992, which recognized a police officer who was not only exemplary in his daily duties, but has made an exemplary contribution to the community. Also impressive is Bill's attendance record, with numerous years having 0 sick time and a tremendous amount of accumulated unused sick hours. In 1972, Bill's first appraisal as a constable with the Niagara Regional Police stated, "All tickets are for legitimate violations. He handles himself well in any situation. He carries out orders well. He gets along well with the public, and he keeps himself neat and clean." We're very thankful for that. In 2018, Bill Schoenels' most recent performance appraisal as a sergeant with the Niagara Regional Police Service stated, "Once again, Sergeant Schoenels continues to set exceptional standards as it pertains to personal work ethic and accountability. Sergeant Schoenels is to be commended for his complete commitment to the NRPS, in particular the 2-District Administration Office. I do not have sufficient superlatives to describe the complete faith that I have in Sergeant Schoenels to perform his duties due to his tireless work ethic, his professional ethics, his professionalism for over 50 years of service, as well as his willingness to complete any duty on behalf of the district. Sergeant Schoenels' commitment to the community continues to set a very high bar, with regular changing of shifts to accommodate community events as required. Exceptional praise for an exceptional officer." In 2004, Bill Schoenels' son, Bill Schoenels Jr., was hired, and Bill Jr. is here as well, and he's currently stationed in Fort Erie. I reached out to the Governor General's office, and according to the Office of the Secretary to the Governor General, Bill Schoenels is only the 4th recipient out of nearly 49,500 police officers to have been awarded a 3rd bar to the Police Exemplary Service Medal for 50 years of service. On behalf of the Niagara Regional Police Service and our entire community, I offer my sincere thanks to Bill for 50 years of dedication and time that he's invested to the service, and for his unwavering commitment and professionalism to enhance public safety in Niagara. At this time, I'd just like to call Bill forward. I'll just ask Bill to say a few words.
Thank you, Chief. Chair Ganzel, Police Services Board, members of the Police Service. Just want to say thank you. I look at that and I say 50 years, oh my goodness. It was a great time, as people say. We got a ringside seat to the greatest show on earth. And I had the VIP section. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Bill. I just want to call Bill's wife, Kathy, forward. As we know, for all of the dedication and commitment that Bill has offered the service, that hasn't gone without sacrifice, and we certainly appreciate all of Kathy's support over the years.
Bill and Kathy, thank you very much again, and congratulations. Okay, so we'll continue along with our agenda item. The next item is the minutes from the board meeting of Thursday, the 27th, and also the minutes from the Accommodation Steering Committee on the same day. If a mover to move those in block, please. Moved by Member Eek, seconded by Member D'Angelo. All in favor of those minutes? Thank you. So that item is covered. Back to a report from the board chair. Niagara Regional Council meeting. I had the opportunity on Monday, July 15th, to accompany Inspector Jim McCaffrey, who I did see earlier. It's probably gone already. Along with Constable Mike Milankowski at Town Council, where the inspector and constable gave the town an update on the horse protests in town. I was there to support our officers on this issue, but my main reason for attendance was to support the service in the rollout of the additional video cameras linked to our real-time operations center. The town is committed to the installation of cameras in the busy tourist area. Next item was the Joint Regional Police Facility Steering Committee on July 15th. I attended the site in one district. My report has been circulated to the board. It is advancing very well. There's a lot of progress that's taken place. The west foundation wall is pretty well complete. Forming is underway for the elevator core on the building site and ongoing layout of a foundation and footer wall for the east side. The water main, the only reason I noticed it, it's this large blue pipe, has been adjusted again. But I mean, obviously, they know what they're doing. They use a lot of surveying equipment for getting the lines up and everything else. Deb, you can go to the next slide there. There's the elevator wall, and there's the site with the walls that have already been formed and that. So it's moving along quite well. They've had very good weather. I don't think they've lost any days to rain. I know we had some rain on the weekend. And that next. And there's the west side wall, pretty well done. And the image to the right of the deck there is the east wall being formed out, and I think the next one is just the two reference photos I always take, so at some point in time you can compare them and see the building going up. I attend the site every 2 weeks. I'm there for about 10 or 15 minutes at the most. And I also regularly attend the Joint Region Police Facilities Committee meeting. Meeting on July 23rd, unfortunately, was canceled, so the next meeting is now scheduled for August 27th. And I will be attending that meeting and will be able to provide updates to the board on the meeting on September 26th. The Ontario Police College March Pass and Review Ceremony on August 1st. I will join Chief McCullough to attend the Ontario Police College for the March Pass and Review Ceremony to recognize those officers who have graduated from OPC Basic Constable Training. On this occasion, there's going to be a total of 446 new police recruits are expected to be marching past, and the Niagara Regional Police Service will have 4 new recruits participating in the ceremony. Senior police personnel from across Ontario who are officially designated to represent their police services will be in attendance at the ceremony, which will be followed by a reception and presentations. Canadian Police Association of Police Governance, or CPAG, annual conference is hosting its 30th year conference, August 9th to the 11th in Calgary. The CPAG conference is a leading event in police governance, and this year's theme is entitled Community Safety, Community Service, and Community Strength. It draws on hundreds of participants from across Canada and provides the delegates with an opportunity for network, learn, and discuss various aspects of public safety and police governance. This year, members Eek, Gale, Gibson, Ms. Reed, and I will be in attendance at the conference. Niagara Regional Police Service Cops for Cancer fundraising dinner and elimination draw. This will take place on August 16th. Vice Chair Steele and I will be joining members of the service at the fundraising dinner and elimination draw. It's being held in Welland. The event is being held at the Creation Hall in Welland, and proceeds raised from this event will support NRPS Cops for Cancer initiative. There are 300 tickets being sold at $75 each, in addition to a full-course meal. The ticket includes an entry to the elimination draw, and any board members who may be interested in attending can purchase tickets through the board office. Or probably Bill 40 probably has a few tickets. NRPS recruit swearing-in ceremony. Would make some sense, seeing we had a march past. On August 22nd, the service will be hosting a swearing-in for our 4 new recruit members and 1 new recruit member to the Niagara Regional Parks Police Service. This event is being held in this room, the community room here at headquarters, and will commence at 7 p.m. Board members wishing to attend the event are asked to confirm with board staff. And the last 2 items, the Ontario Association of Police Services Board and the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police Zone 4 meeting. The Ontario Association of Police Service Boards and the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police will be holding their Zone 4 quarterly meeting on September 17th at 8 a.m. This meeting is being hosted by the Niagara Parks Police in Niagara Falls, and the location will be confirmed very shortly, and all board members will get notice of that. Members wishing to attend, please let the executive director know. Upcoming PSB meetings in order to better accommodate the summer holiday schedules for board and service executive staff. The board does not schedule its regular monthly committee meetings or board meetings during the month of August. The Police Service Board monthly meeting schedule will reconvene in September, and thus the next Police Services Board committee meeting is Thursday, the 12th of September at 8:30, again in this room here at headquarters. And the next full board meeting will be held on Thursday, September 26th at 8:30 a.m. in the community room here in headquarters. So those are the only remarks I have. I will turn it over to the Chief of Police.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. You have quite a few items that I wanted to cover off this morning. Just with regards to yesterday afternoon, myself and several members from the Niagara Regional Police Service had the pleasure of participating in the second annual Great Wolf Lodge Head Shave event to benefit pediatric cancer research. It's a great community event, and it's in keeping with our goal of engaging with our community. I want to thank Deputy Chief Bill Forty for his vision in bringing Cops for Cancer here to our jurisdiction. Historically, this event started 23 years ago with the Edmonton Police Service and ultimately has raised millions of dollars for pediatric cancer research. Last year was our first event, so this marks our second annual Tour de Golden Horseshoe Cops for Cancer, which will take place September 16th to the 20th. In last year's inaugural event, we had 28 riders cycling 400 kilometers over 4 days, and we raised over $180,000. This year's event will cycle 500 kilometers over 5 days with a goal of $200,000. RCMP, Halton, Police, OPP, ourselves, and Niagara EMS will all be participating in that. So as you can probably tell, myself, Deputy Forty, Superintendent Brian Ash, and Mr. Ackerma School all had our heads shaved yesterday in recognition of this great event. I want to thank Mr. Keith Simmons from Great Wolf Lodge for once again offering up the Great Wolf Lodge establishment for this worthy event, and to thank the Canadian Cancer Society for all the work that they've done in supporting the Tour de Golden Horseshoe. More importantly, for all the tremendous work they do to raise awareness for pediatric cancer research. Just want to touch on a call that occurred on July the 14th. During the early evening hours, members of the Niagara Regional Police Service received information regarding a female in her late teens that was suffering from a crisis. There were immediate concerns for the well-being of this young female who was unaccounted for, and a search commenced forthwith. Officers liaised with the female's mother through the utilization of a Find My iPhone app and determined that the female may be in the area of Short Hills Provincial Park. Officers subsequently attended this location and found the female vehicle unoccupied in the parking lot. Police personnel, with the assistance of our canine officer, Constable John Krachkovic, and his police service dog Bronson, entered the park and commenced a ground search. The communications unit were able to direct officers using the GPS on their portable radios while referencing information that was being provided by the Find My Phone app, which the real-time operations center personnel had logged into and was monitoring. After a 2-hour search, PSD Bronson located the female amongst dense bush in a state of medical distress. The female had to be carried out by officers to an awaiting ambulance, where she was transported to hospital to receive the much-needed care she required. Officers had to deal with hot, humid conditions in very difficult terrain. While this story arises from the hardship experienced by an individual in distress, the utilization of new technologies, boots to the ground police work, a police service dog, and the essential communications between all involved, and particularly the facilitation of necessary communication by members of the communication unit and in concert with our real-time operations center, brought this investigation to a successful conclusion and no doubt saved this individual's life. Just want to provide an update with regard to the Port Colborne or Port All Situation Table. Since the inaugural Port All Situation Table meeting in February of 2018, collectively participating agencies have tabled 62 individuals for consideration at the Situation Table. Of the 62 individuals, 54 were determined to be experiencing acutely elevated risk of harm. Through a collaborative intervention strategy, participating agencies were able to offer assistance to each of these individuals to mitigate their risks. Port All continues to hear positive feedback from the community stakeholders, specifically regarding the collaborative efforts being done by all involved. Port All continues to gain momentum, and additional agencies are looking to join the team in the near future. The Ministry of the Solicitor General is a strong supporter of situation tables and offers municipalities who run situation tables an opportunity to utilize the Ministry's risk-driven tracking database, which is one of the tools that communities can use to collect risk-based information about local priorities, including risk information, vulnerable groups, and protective factors to help inform the community of safety and well-being planning processes. Recognizing the value of this work, the Ministry is committed to provide the database free of charge to any community in Ontario that has introduced this multi-sector risk intervention model. Since this database began provincially as a pilot in 2014, the use of the tracking database has expanded throughout Ontario, and by the end of 2019 is expected to have about 57 situation tables. As of July 1st, the Port All situation table has commenced the onboarding process. I want to acknowledge Staff Sergeant Rob LaPlante, who is the District Commander of 6th District, our Port Colborne Police Station. Rob, as Chair of the Port All situation table, has done an exceptional job to bring it to where it stands today. And recently, Amanda Upper from Port Cares has taken over as Chair, and we certainly wish her all the best going forward. Rob, however, will continue to assist the new Chair, and the NRPS will continue to have representation at the situation table. You may recall this is, in previous discussions with the board, this is exactly how we had envisioned the situation table would work, that we would take the initial lead as the chair of the situation table, and then we would look to a community partner to take it forward. And so we thank Amanda for stepping forward and taking that initiative on. Just want to make the board aware of an SIU case closure. You'll recall on December the 21st of 2018 at approximately 12:24 p.m., our officers attended a possible family violence forcible confinement call at a residence in West Lincoln. Upon arrival, a male believed to be involved in this incident was observed walking in backyards in the vicinity. The male was followed by police as he walked to a vehicle parked nearby. Two officers subsequently interacted with the male. The male then pulled out a firearm, later learned to be an imitation firearm, which he pointed at one of the officers. During this interaction, one officer initially discharged his conducted energy weapon or taser, and then his service pistol, firing 3 rounds at the male. The male was taken into custody and transported to hospital by EMS. The male survived his gunshot wounds and was later charged with several criminal offenses. As a result of the allegation of serious injury occurring during an interaction with a police officer, the SIU was notified and invoked their mandate to investigate. During the subsequent investigation, 1 subject officer and 5 witness officers were designated by the SIU. In the closure letter, Interim SIU Director Martino advised that the SIU investigation has been concluded and there are no grounds for criminal charges against any officer, and there were no concerns expressed by the SIU Director regarding any of the actions of the officer. I can say that I'm incredibly proud of their efforts, of all of the responding officers in this incident, and our awards committee will certainly be reviewing their efforts and formally recognizing their actions at some point in the near future. Just with regards to our homicide statistics, year to date, we are at 4 homicides in 2019. By comparison, we had 2 homicides in 2018, 3 homicides in 2017, 1 homicide in 2016, and 6 homicides in 2015. I just wanted to report on one homicide that occurred during the reporting period. On Saturday, June 29th, shortly after 2 a.m., one district uniform officers responded to the area of 47 Plymouth Avenue, St. Catharines, regarding a male who was in medical distress. When officers arrived, they discovered a 23-year-old male lying on a nearby driveway that had visible signs of trauma. Injuries were determined to be life-threatening. The male was transported by EMS personnel to the Niagara Health System St. Catharines site, where he was eventually pronounced deceased. Later that same day, a 21-year-old male was arrested and charged with second-degree murder, and I can confirm that the victim and the accused were known to each other, and that investigation continues. There was, during the reporting period of June, there was one fatal motor vehicle collision and two life-threatening injury motor vehicle collisions during the month of June. Statistically, for the year, we have 5 fatal collisions in 2019. In 2018, for the entire year, we had 15. For 2017, we had 18. And for 2016, we had 20. So we are trending quite favorably. Just with regards to the one fatal collision that occurred on Saturday, June 22nd, I'll provide a little bit of details on that. We responded to a report of a collision between an all-terrain vehicle and a pickup truck on Range Road 1 in the township of West Lincoln. Investigation revealed that the ATV, which was proceeding eastbound on Range Road 1, collided with a westbound pickup truck head-on. The 19-year-old male driver of the ATV, who was not wearing a helmet at the time of the collision, was pronounced deceased at the scene. A 22-year-old male passenger on the ATV sustained no injuries. 71-year-old male driver of the pickup truck also sustained no injuries. That investigation has been concluded, and there will not be any charges laid in that incident. Just with regards to the two serious personal injury collisions, on Wednesday, June 9th, we responded to a go-kart facility in the city of Niagara Falls regarding a collision between two go-karts. Investigation revealed that a 46-year-old male was seated in a go-kart and hit from behind by another go-kart while on the track. Collision was deemed to be a minor collision initially. However, the 46-year-old male somehow sustained injury that was considered serious and life-threatening. The male was transported by EMS personnel to a local hospital and then by air ambulance to an out-of-town hospital where he was listed in critical condition. The male's injuries, however, were eventually downgraded to stable and non-life-threatening, and he has since been released from the hospital. There was indication that the male's injuries were a result of a pre-existing health issue. On Tuesday, June 25th, our officers responded to Wellington Street and Lincoln Street in the city of Welland regarding a male that had been run over by a minivan. Investigation revealed that a 26-year-old male had an argument with friends, exited a minivan in the area of Wellington and Lincoln Street. The friends then made attempts to have the male re-enter the van so as not to leave him on foot and alone in the area. As the minivan was reversing in a turning motion, the male, while on foot, fell and was run over by the minivan. There were several witnesses who confirmed that there was no intent and that this incident was an unfortunate occurrence. Injuries to the male were considered life-threatening, and he was transported by EMS personnel to local hospital, and where he was then transferred to an out-of-town hospital. Injuries were later downgraded, and his condition is now no longer considered life-threatening, and he has been released from a hospital. Some items in the news, an update in the investigation that was detailed last month in January 2019. The Niagara Regional Police Service Central Fraud Unit commenced an investigation into an alleged fraud and theft of construction equipment from a West Lincoln business, the Havana Group Incorporated. As previously mentioned, on June 12, 2019, as a result of a lengthy investigation, our fraud unit, with the assistance of the Hamilton Police Major Fraud Branch and their high enforcement action team, arrested and charged a 46-year-old Ancaster man with numerous offenses, including theft over, uttering threats, and conspiracy to commit an indictable offense. Subsequently, while attending the bail hearing for the accused male, police located a second suspect who was sought for arrest in relation to the same matter. As police attempted to effect the arrest, the suspect resisted and a brief struggle ensued. 58-year-old male from Cambridge was arrested and has also been charged with numerous offenses, including theft over $5,000, conspiracy to commit an indictable offense, and resisting a peace officer. 3 people are now facing charges following an investigation into a suspected sale of cocaine and fentanyl in the city of St. Catharines. On June 27th at approximately 10:50 a.m., members of the 1 District Street Crime Unit arrested a male and female in the parking lot of Welland Avenue and Bunning Road. Approximately 7 grams of fentanyl with an estimated street value of $1,400, as well as 46 grams of cocaine with an estimated street value of $4,600 were seized. A third person was also charged in relation to this, and a 45-year-old and male and a 32-year-old female are all facing numerous drug-related charges. On Sunday, June 30th. Thank you, Deputy. Members of the Niagara Regional Police conducted ride checkpoints within the cities of Port Colborne and Niagara Falls for the Canada Day long weekend. And at approximately 9:15 p.m., the first sobriety checkpoint was established near Shirkston Shores in Port Colborne. In the following 2 hours, approximately 500 vehicles were stopped, and each driver was questioned whether they had consumed any alcohol or drugs earlier in the day. A total of 15 drivers were requested to provide a breath sample, with each providing a sample within the acceptable range. Then moved to Lundy's Lane in Niagara Falls and stopped another 150 vehicles. 5 more drivers were requested to provide a sample of their breath for analysis. Once again, they all provided samples in the acceptable range and were permitted to drive away. Police, however, did come across a few drivers where an odor of cannabis was present. As a result of the investigation, there were 3 charges laid against drivers for having cannabis readily available to them, and a further charge issued to a person under 19 years of age for possessing cannabis. In addition to these drug charges, another 8 tickets were issued from 2 drivers for various drug offenses. Just a reminder to all of the motorists out in Niagara that we do perform ride checks regularly, and we certainly appreciate and expect everybody's cooperation in driving sober and free of any drugs in their system. June of 2019, detectives from 3 District Criminal Investigation Branch commenced an investigation into the recent rash of theft from vehicles and property damage occurring within Dane City and the east side of Welland. As a result of that investigation, a 26-year-old Welland resident was arrested on June 30th and charged with several offenses, including 9 counts of possession of stolen property and several drug possession-related offenses. And just want to remind the public that we are thankful for their assistance and cooperation in bringing this matter to a closure. Since March of 2019, uniform officers and detectives from the 1 District Office of the Niagara Regional Police Service have been investigating a series of car fires in the St. Catharines downtown core. On July 10th at approximately 4 a.m., 2 uniform officers on patrol in the area of Lake Street and Beach Street observed something burning under a parked car and a person walking away from the car. The officers were conducting directed patrols in the area of St. Catharines that had been victimized by previous car fires. As a result of the on-scene investigation, the officers arrested a 55-year-old female from St. Catharines. Those charges related to 7 different car fires in incidents within the city of St. Catharines between the dates of May 27th and July 10th. Again, the Niagara Regional Police Service would like to thank the community of St. Catharines for their cooperation and continued patience in this matter. And that concludes all that I have for the public portion of the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I think one of the, sorry, Chief, go ahead.
Sorry. One other item. You may have noticed a new face sitting at the table. Just would like to, at this time, introduce Ms. Wanda Shreve, General Counsel for the service. She joins the service as General Counsel, and one of her core responsibilities will have oversight of labor relations for our service. In 2001, Wanda was called to the bar, and she commenced her career as a lawyer at McCarthy Tetro LLP, one of the country's most prestigious and elite law firms. A member of the firm's labor and employment group, her practice focused on providing legal advice and representation to management clients in both the public and private sectors, in both unionized and non-unionized workplaces. Her practice is touched on employment and labor law and legislation, human rights, workers' compensation, occupational health and safety, privacy, pay equity, and the employment-related elements of mergers and acquisitions. In 2006, Wanda left the firm to join St. Michael's Hospital as in-house legal team as the Senior Labor Relations Associate. Here she advised management with respect to both unionized and non-unionized employees and staff physicians. She represented the hospital at tribunals, negotiations, arbitrations, and before regulatory bodies. She managed external counsel and created the hospital's first grievance database. In 2008, Wanda moved to RBC, originally joining as a Senior Employee Relations Advisor, promoted to Manager of Employee Relations and Policy Governance for all of Canada in 2014, and promoted to the most recent position that she held before joining us as the Senior Employee Relations Manager, Enterprise Workplace Policy and Risk. Her practice has been quite expansive. She has worked on a number of sensitive matters, including workplace investigations and severance issues, managed the team that developed and implemented the bank's employment policies, standards, and compliance program, and generally worked with the executive stakeholders and employees to propel ethical behavior and enhanced employer-employee relations. So as you can see from the quick bio that I read out, Wanda comes with a vast amount of experience, and we're certainly thrilled to have her joining our team.
Wanda, congratulations. Welcome to Niagara Regional Police Service. Welcome to this board meeting. Hopefully you'll be a face that we may see fairly often, I suspect. I'm assuming she's under Deputy Chief Forty's area of responsibility? Okay.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. One thing I wanted to highlight, Chief, just from your comments, was what I think was the excellent use of technology in a number of areas, and that was the missing female in Short Hills. I also would like to recognize the use of a police service dog in that event. And there was an event, I think, about 2 weeks ago where the OPP was instrumental in Algonquin Park through the use of a tracking dog, one of the many I'm assuming that they have, in finding 2 lost 16-year-olds. The public needs to realize when we have dog graduations and that, the importance of the canine unit that this service has. Niagara Parks has one, OPP. Most of the larger police services in Canada do. They play a vital part in what I call the search and finding of that person. But more importantly, it all started with the relationship that the young girl had with her mother, because usually at that age there's a certain reluctance to share information. The app on the phone, the Find My iPhone, I think was probably the key or the most vital piece on that. And then again, the fact that this service has stepped up in the technology field to be able to take over that information and be able to effectively communicate that out to our units in the field using the new radio systems that we put in that incorporates GPS and everything else. So everything comes together. And the Real-Time Operations Center, which we've now fully staffed on a full-time basis, is another step in that direction. And again, it's a vital tool that we as a police service provide to the community and being able to, I suspect that that whole thing was under 2 hours. Am I correct?
That's correct. It was about 2 hours in length. But as you can appreciate, a lot of different resources were involved in that, and it was a tremendous team effort and really a coordinated effort of all of the technologies and resources coming together.
So to me, that's a great success story, and one that, as a service and as a chief, you need to be very proud of, that came out so well and that everything worked so well. And so if you would pass on to the officers, the various team members on that, from the board's perspective, how thankful that we were that everything worked and everything came together for that. I think it shows very well.
We certainly will. Thank you.
So getting back into, sorry, Member Gale.
Yeah, I have a question of the chief. Okay. Chief, you mentioned in your report that with traffic, we have had five fatalities up until now, which is not very good, but it's good that it's lower. And it was 18 about 2 or 3 years ago. And certainly it's trended lower. And I remember about 2 or 3 years ago, Niagara Lake and Beamsville were the focus of more radar, more this, more that, because we had so many fatalities around those areas. And there's been different hotspots. For the same reason that you may have provided more officers to tackle these problems, do you look at the other way now possibly and move some of these officers? And I know it's not just fatalities that traffic does, but do you look at taking some of these officers and put them on regular patrol if fatalities are down, or consider that in the future? I know we're only 7 months into the season, but I'm just putting that out there.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, we, as part of our budget process, we constantly assess and reassess staffing for the various units, including the collision reconstruction unit. It's not just fatalities that those officers respond to. They also respond to serious injury collisions where we suspect that the injuries are life-threatening. So we will continue to assess all across the service, and you have our commitment that we will do that for all units.
And I expected that answer, and that's why I said I put that out there. But just for the same reasons we're short officers. I don't know if there's such a backup on calls still on that, but I just wanted you to consider something like that. Thanks.
Any other board members, questions from the chief on his presentation? Okay, back into the regular agenda. The presentation that we had for Bill Schoenels is item number 143. I just need a mover and seconder to receive that. Moved by Member Gale, seconded by Member Vice Chair Steele. All in favor? Thank you. The next one is the consent agenda. It's items 144 through 151. Any member, mover and seconder to place on the floor? Member Gibson, seconded by Member Gale. I saw his hand. Any questions on these items? Just let me know what the item number is. Member Gale.
Chair, I only have a question on item number 150, and there's simple questions. What fund, through you to the chief or whoever wants to answer it, when we pay this, if we ever pay these rewards, what fund does the payment come out of, and who determines the amount of the reward? And I'm going to add another question to it. You can answer that too. How do you budget for something like this? So.
Through you, and I stand to be corrected by the executive director, I believe it comes to the board. There is a board fund that's allocated, and a determination is made under the totality of the circumstances of the person, what amount of the award or reward would be appropriate.
So that's up to us, through you. What is the fund that we take this out of, if we ever do take it out?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll confirm with the policy, but I believe it's through the board's special fund.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on any of the other items? Okay, show of hands in favor of receiving consent. Thank you. Next item is under the new business section. It's section 152. It's the 9-year capital forecast. There was a revised document that went out. There is a The motion has three different parts. It's in front of you there. There was some changes made to, gotta check the two items. There was some changes made to items number one and that, so, who's doing the presentation? The service. Okay. So I'll have a mover and seconder just to put it on the floor, and then I will ask the chief to move by Vice Chair Steele, seconded by Member Gibson. So, Chief, if you're doing, or Finance is doing a presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll do the presentation. They're just going to queue up the PowerPoint presentation. So thank you very much, Chair Ganzel, board members, staff members, and members of our community who may be watching this morning for the opportunity to present our proposed 2020 capital budget and 9-year forecast, and more importantly, for allowing us to provide some context surrounding our capital needs. As you can appreciate, there has been an incredible amount of work that has gone into preparing this year's capital budget being presented to you this morning. The capital budget process focuses on developing a long-term asset management strategy, not only to replace existing assets, but to align our capital needs with our future vision of the service. It's important to stress that this annual process gives us an opportunity to review our previous forecast for future capital needs against the continually changing horizon in policing. We are, of course, mindful of our responsibility under the Police Services Act, Section 39. Per the Act, the Board is responsible for submitting operating and capital estimates to the Municipal Council that will show separately the amounts that will be required to maintain the police force and provide it with equipment and facilities. In addition to fulfilling our legislative responsibility, the annual capital budget and 9-year forecast provide the region with the information necessary to develop and maintain an affordable asset management plan for the citizens of Niagara. As outlined in the board report, the service is recommending that the board, number one, approve the 2020 capital budget in the amount of $4,154,500. Secondly, that the board approve the funding sources as follows: that $1,504,500 transfers from the Police Capital Levy Reserve, that $1,500,000 transfer from the Police Vehicle and Equipment Reserve, and that $1,150,000 be debt financed. And three, that the board receive the 9-year capital forecast as a guideline for the development of future capital budgets. As part of the annual capital budget process, the service provides a 9-year capital forecast as a guideline for the development of future capital needs. In the 2019 capital budget submission, we forecasted a 2020 capital budget request in the amount of $7.9 million. As in prior years, the service has reviewed the forecast established in 2019, compared it to our current needs and emerging legislation to arrive at our proposed capital budget request. As a result of the review, we have deferred and removed a number of the forecasted capital projects and reduced our overall 2020 request by $3.75 million. Furthermore, of the $4.15 million in capital requests this year, approximately 89% of those projects fall within the asset replacement category, while 11% of our requests are for new capital related to service enhancements. In regards to how we propose to fund this year's projects, 72% are from our own reserve funds and 28% are from debt financing. Our reserves are funded by our operating budget As you may recall, our 2019 operating budget included $2.7 million transfer to capital and vehicle reserve funds. The proposed capital budget will not require an increase to our 2020 operating budget, as the reserve transfer of $2.7 million will be sufficient to fund our capital projects presented today. This is the result of an asset management strategy that focuses on forward planning to minimize the annual impact on our operating budget, as well as our dependency on debt financing. As previously noted, the service has two sources of capital funding: capital reserve funds and debt financing. Reserve funding reduces the requirement to debt finance. It's used to fund assets with shorter life expectancy than debt maturity terms and projects with costs lower than the region's debenture threshold. And it directly impacts the annual operating budget. Whereas with debt financing, we need to be mindful that the service debt is included in the entire debt funding envelope for the region, and that the region has forecasted a significant capital funding deficit for 2020 and beyond. I'll now provide a brief overview of each of the 14 capital projects we are bringing forward for your consideration and approval. With regards to vehicles, the capital request is for $1.5 million funded from our Vehicle and Equipment Levy Reserve Fund. The service has a vehicle replacement plan which enables us to maintain continuity of service, safety, and ensure the vehicle maintenance plan is supported through our fleet resources. The vehicle purchases will be made with the assistance of the Ontario Association of Chief of Police Purchasing Cooperative Group to tender and secure the best competitive pricing for one of our largest asset pools. IT and network infrastructure, the capital request is for $700,000 funded from our Capital Levy Reserve Fund. We are certainly not unique in the impact that we are seeing in terms of technology modernization, digital transformation, and the evolving impact that it is having on police operations. An annual provision in our capital budget ensures a consistent approach to IT and network life cycle equipment replacement, upgrades to support the continuity in service, and is consistent and aligned with our IT strategic plan. Next Generation 911, or commonly known as NG 911, the capital request is $700,000 funded from debt financing. This capital initiative is the result of CRTC telecom regulatory policy mandate that all 911 communication centers or public safety answering points be NG 911 compliant by June 30th, 2023. A net new telephone system and 911 call processing software are required to transition to NG 911. Additionally, upgrades to existing systems such as CAD and call logger, to name a few. It is necessary to approach this in a phased implementation due to its complexity and to ensure a successful migration to the NG 911 platform and operations. Our mobile command post. The capital request is $450,000 funded from debt. Since 2015, the service has included the replacement of our command post in our 9-year capital forecast. It was planned for replacement in 2019, but was deferred to 2020. Our existing command post was purchased in 2006, is a fifth wheel model which requires a separate vehicle to tow it, and the driver requires a specialized Class A license. The technical equipment housed within this unit is obsolete and needs to be upgraded with external cameras, a system which would link together with the RTOC and corporate communication monitors to view our UAV, our unmanned aerial vehicle or drone activity, internal communications to record and closely monitor the status of ongoing crisis negotiations. We are proposing to replace it with a self-propelled model which requires no tow vehicle or specialized licensing for the driver. We anticipate this vehicle will have a 15-year life expectancy. Mobile command vehicles are deployed for a number of emergency situations such as major incidents, search and rescue, as well as high-risk threats where space for police, negotiation, incident commanders, and scribes are required. To achieve adequacy standards for major incidents, our police service must have a mobile command center that is self-sufficient, capable of prolonged housing of a minimum of 6 persons, radio and video monitoring capabilities, data lines, and dedicated phone lines, as well as a separate and secure area for negotiation teams. A mobile command post is critical for supporting the command triangle team when dealing with these high-risk emergency threats. These newer model command posts are designed to provide enhanced vehicle maneuvering capabilities, greater working spaces, and state-of-the-art audio and video recording capabilities that are necessary during crisis negotiations. A self-propelled mobile command vehicle will improve response time for our emergency tactical unit, as well as enhance the efficiencies of managing these high-risk situations. Our electronic vehicle key deployment system, the capital request is for $157,000, funded from the capital levy reserve. This is an expansion of our pilot project utilizing an electronic key cabinet and software to manage the pool of service vehicles at police headquarters. The capital request represents the cost of expanding the initiative service-wide to track the usage and deployment of each operational vehicle that ensures an efficient and effective use of our fleet assets. Based on favorable results from our pilot project at headquarters, the service is confident that the expansion will continue to realize efficiencies across the service. Conducted energy weapon, or CEWs, capital request is for $200,000, funded from the capital levy reserve. We have included a replacement strategy for our frontline CEWs in our previous forecast. However, this year we have revised our forecast to reflect our immediate need to replace approximately 97 CEWs this year, followed by replacing the remaining 251 units over the next 3 years. Our equipment asset tracker software, the capital request is for $150,000, funded from the capital levy reserve. This is a new service initiative to transition our equipment inventory tracking from a paper-based system to an electronic sign-in, sign-out of daily issued equipment such as portable radios, CEWs, roadside screening devices, etc. The equipment asset tracker would include electronic RFID scanning to sign equipment in and out, further supported by a building tracking feature that identifies when assets have been removed and returned from the building premises. The service is confident that this tracking software will facilitate the management of our existing equipment and better forecast asset replacement. Judgment simulator. The capital request is for $81,800, funded from our capital levy reserve. This is also a new service initiative that would enhance our adult learning methods of training using simulation software that provides a more realistic learning experience for participants. The current method for delivering scenario-based training is resource-intensive and is dependent upon having a sufficient number of instructors and role players each time a training session is delivered. The simulator provides an enhanced learning experience that will augment the existing scenario-based training, provide greater flexibility to support member training needs without placing greater demands on our instructors. In addition, the simulator ensures greater consistency and provides more objectivity in evaluation. Tactical training site upgrades. The capital request is for $50,000, again funded from our capital levy reserve. This is an asset upgrade of our tactical teams training facility structures that are currently wooden-based to utilizing repurposed sea containers. Our current structures require constant repair and replacement due to exposure to the elements of the weather and repeated use during tactical training. In lieu of another wooden structure, a more durable structure consisting of repurposed sea containers would better suit the needs of our emergency task unit. Specialized technical equipment, the capital request is for $49,700 funded from our capital levy reserve. This is an asset replacement of technical equipment to support a variety of investigations, including human trafficking and organized crime investigations. This specialized software enhances investigative techniques and is utilized under judicial authorization and under emergency circumstances. Benefits include the ability to decipher large volumes of data in a more streamlined manner that will enable the documentation of information to be completed and compiled in a shorter time frame for court proceedings. The diver surface supply console. The capital request is $38,000 funded from the capital levy reserve. This is an asset upgrade to an existing console device. This new console will supply air control to 3 divers, as well as provide communication between the divers and the surface station. Under Ontario Occupational Health and Safety Act regulation for diving safety and CSA standards, when entering a confined space such as under a pier or a wharf, an in-water diver's tender is required. Along with the diver and the in-water tender, a standby diver is required. The regulations and standards also require that this type of diving is conducted using surface supplied air. This requires a system that's capable of supporting 3 divers at the same time in an emergency situation. Currently, the system used is capable to support 2 divers, and if a 3rd diver is required, then a completely separate system is needed, which becomes more complex and increases the risk to divers. The emergency application tourniquets. The capital request is for $38,000 funded from the capital levy reserve. This is a new service initiative used to quickly control life-threatening extremity bleeding during an emergency situation. When it comes to serious bleeds resulting from injury, the situation needs to be assessed, and time obviously can be of the essence. For these incidents, a tourniquet is much more effective in reducing blood flow to the affected area. The tourniquet has been identified as the best option, and it's now become the national standard. You may recall in 2014 the freak motorcycle accident that involved Constable Pete Tucker from the OPP, where he was struck by a goose on Highway 400, where his leg was severed. The officers involved in that incident had the tourniquet, and they have attributed that tourniquet to saving Constable Tucker's life in that particular incident. The tactical search pole camera, the capital request is for $26,000 funded from the capital levy reserve. This is an asset replacement of an existing older model that has reached its useful life. The camera is ideal for armed and or barricaded calls, for service where the camera with an under-door camera feature allows for officers to gain intelligence or eyes on a potentially volatile subject without putting officers in harm's way. The LiDARs, the capital request is $14,000 funded from the capital levy reserve. This is similar to our replacement strategy for CEWs, in which we are moving to replace our current radars with LiDARs within the service. LiDARs offer pinpoint accuracy and are ideal in multi-lane environments where traditional radar units are not nearly as effective. Traffic enforcement is a priority within the Niagara region to help reduce personal injury and fatal collisions. The purchase of 2 LiDAR units per year will allow for the phasing out of older and obsolete inventory. This will provide access to new instruments designed for the most efficient speed measurement and enforcement efforts. That concludes our overview of the 14 capital projects that are included in the $4.15 million capital budget request for 2020. Lastly, it's important to note that included in the board report on Appendix 4 is a detailed listing of proposed capital projects for the years of 2021 through to 2029, including planned facility upgrades. As mentioned previously, the importance of forward planning of our capital assets will ensure continuity of services within a sustainable funding strategy. That concludes our presentation, and with that, I would welcome any questions from the board regarding the 2020 capital budget and our 9-year forecast. Thank you.
I see hands from Member Eek.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Through you to the chief, a couple of questions just regarding really clarity and understanding. First off, I noticed that you did defer a couple of expenditures from your initial 2019 forecast for 2020, and those two items were the body-worn cameras of some $3 million deferred till 2022, and the voice radio system of $1 million deferred to 2021. And my first question is perhaps is the need and the impact, if any, of this deferral towards meeting your needs on the police force?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. We have reviewed both of those items, and we don't believe that by deferring those items that it will have any impact on police operations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A follow-up. Seeing those two items being transferred to future years, if we look at the proposed 2020 capital budget total, you're looking at for some $4.2 million. And when I review your forecast for 2021, it jumps significantly to $10.6 million. And in 2022, it's $7.4 million. So I'm just wondering how, I guess as a Greenor, how you might handle that significant increase in future years.
Obviously, as we go forward, we will continue to assess the needs. Body-worn cameras were something that perhaps 3 years ago were deriving much attention across largely the U.S., and there have been some police services that have introduced body-worn cameras in Canada. But, you know, I would say that in Canada, we typically enjoy a much higher level of public trust and public confidence in policing than our counterparts do in the U.S. for a variety of reasons. So we have continued to include the body-worn cameras in our budget, capital budget forecast, but a lot will be dependent upon legislation or legislative requirements from the Police Services Act. The regulations are being drafted currently we expect the new legislation will come out in 2021, and we're not sure if body-worn cameras will be legislated or not. There does not appear to be an outcry from the public to have our officers equipped with body-worn cameras. But as a measure of safety and not knowing the certainty of where things will lie in the future, we have continued to keep those in our forecasts in the future.
Thank you. And if I may, just a follow-up again, how many of our current force officers wear body cameras?
Through you, Mr. Chair, currently we do not have any officers with body-worn cameras, and we do not have any in-car camera video as well.
Thank you for that. And just my last question, Mr. Chair. when I take a look at the forecast for the 9 years forward with respect to capital budgets, I notice that at the conclusion of those 9 years, there will be a I thought it was a debt load of some 73.4 million, but perhaps I've read that wrong. If you take a look at debenture approvals, that is not a debt in terms of, I'm referring now to Appendix 3, just for clarity. My lead-in, without debating the figures, I'm just wondering, with respect to provincial, are there any provincial guidelines with respect to amount of capital debt that we as a regional police force can occur? I know municipally they have guidelines for that, and that's the reason for my request, whether or not you're legislated to maintain a guideline.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm going to have our Director of Business Services, Ms. Lisa DiDonato de Chellis, answer that.
So we fall within the guidelines of the region as a municipality. So our debt is funded through the region as part of their entire debt load. We are, I hate to say this, but an inconsequential amount of the total debt for the region. But this is the purpose of the 9-year forecast. We provide the 9-year forecast to the region so that they can make adjustments and forecasts for their future debt load. And we work with them on an annual basis to review all our debt requests to ensure that we help them to keep their debt to a minimum. We very often are able to fund all our capital projects through our capital reserve levies and not have to rely on debt. But there are, like last year, we issued no debt for any of our projects. That's why we very rarely have to rely on them. But for our big facility projects are the ones we do have to rely on them for.
Thank you very much for your response, and in listening, I guess that's a good news response, so thank you very much.
Member Gale.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question about the process of this. Is this the first time we're seeing this? In the past, we've had this come to a committee where we could digest it, and
Probably
then,
saw some of the 2019 in the previous year. Like this comes before us every year, so we saw.
I understand
bits of
that,
it,
but
yeah.
it's always come to us by committee so we can digest it and look at some of the things happening in the public and have input on it. And I'll use an example with the region a few years ago when it came up with insurance, and somebody from the public called me and said you can save more money on insurance at that time as a result of seeing what happened at a committee. In this case here, I can see the public looking at items like the key system, and I don't think we're being open enough on this by not having it at committee, us think about it, us talk about it as counselors possibly, have sidebars with the chief over the next month or whatever on this about, again, I have key system stands out to me right off the bat, but I have questions on vehicles, I have questions on a number of items here, but we're being asked to ratify this right now, and it's no harm to no fault on the chief on this, but I'd like to know this process. I think this should be deferred to a committee or to the next board meeting, because it's not fair to bring it to us for full ratification at full committee. Am I wrong?
We could, as a board, take it to our finance committee, and that would be on September the 12th.
Perfect, and that's what I think it
That would allow
should
us
be.
to have a more in-depth discussion.
Because I'll tell you, at the region, a month ago, we had budget meetings, the new counselors realized that if they get everything they want, and this isn't just capital, but it's over 10%. So and now they're starting to pare things down. And even Todd Harrison, the finance director there, said every meeting more or less is a budget meeting. This case here, a question I have, has this been taken to the region at all? Not that they have any input on what you want, but we come up with the money for you. So has this been brought to the region?
Just to point out, there is a timetable that the region had published, which we work towards for submission of documents. So this would have been part of one of their requests for a capital budget to go in at a certain date. I don't know what that due date was.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we have shared our preliminary numbers with the region, so they are aware of our capital budget request. And we are required to provide them with the number by August 2nd is the date in the budget timelines that the region has set.
Thank you, Chief. So, Chair, I don't want to ask all my questions right now, because these are questions that are going to take up a lot of time with a lot of staff sitting there. But I look cross-eyed at some things here. I would hope that someone here will defer it to September. Don't tell me the region can't wait till September for this, because we've been later than that on a lot of things, especially our first year of term, and there's a lot of new councilors here that are police board members here. But I'd like the opportunity for the public to weigh in by watching the video on this, on some of the items that the chief is asking, and get some input on this. And because we're at a full board meeting, usually full board meeting, you have one chance to talk. But if it's still planned on going ahead with this, I'll vote no on it, but I have questions on a lot of items here. I can see the public's looking at the key system for $150,000 and saying, really? Do you need something like that? Can you not hire some people to look at this? How many stations does it take care of? There's so many things here I can take a look at that I can ask questions. I think our process is wrong. I think that we might be speeding things up. And 2 weeks ago, we had a committee meeting. We could have thrown this into finance if it was available then. If it wasn't, then we wait till September for it. But I know the region can wait till then.
Vice Chair Steele.
Thank you. Can we not send this to them as a draft with regards to us meeting at our finance meeting in September? Because really, what is our final date that we actually pass our entire budget as a police service?
So the region has August 2nd date as for this to be into them, but as in the past, so this is consistent with prior years, we have brought it to the board in time to make that date. But if you defer it, which has happened in the past, we just ask that we provide it to them as a draft so they can start consolidating their numbers and be prepared. And then they have a date of September for our operating budget, and we do try and make that date, but again, we can provide them a draft. And then there's a date set in October, November, can't remember the exact date right now, that we have to have a presentation being done at the region. So it is fine to provide them with a draft. We just like we like the board to see it first, in order that you know what they are, so that members of regional council who go to the regional council don't see it for the first time there. So we try and make their dates. We have made their dates in the past, but if not, a draft is fine. The ones they're mostly worried about are the debt finance ones, because they have to do their whole debt strategy. Those are the ones they're most concerned with. The ones that we are able to fund ourselves, they don't have such a concern with.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I have no issue with referring this, not deferring it, referring it to our finance committee, but at this time to meet that August date, that we do send this as draft only with changes that we can make in the future.
Chair, I would have made that referral, but usually when you talk at the region, when you talk on something, you can't make a referral. But I agree totally with what he wants to do.
So we'll consider that to be a motion of referral. Will come up in September, seconded by Member Gale. Everybody in favor of referring to the Finance Committee in the September meeting? Okay, so that's dealt with. Chief, if you, for your finance office, let them know what we've done today. The items that, as Lisa pointed out, are most concerning is the debt financing that they are on the hook for. If this goes up to them as draft and with an explanation, as we will deal with this at our meeting in September. Member D'Angelo.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted, I know it's late to speak on this, but are we looking at making amendments of changing the numbers? Because really what a budget and a capital forecast is a roadmap of where you're headed. Each of the items that are listed in the report here for the capital expenditures have to come back with a report to the board before we proceed the capital initiation of them. So there's going to be fulsome discussion on that. So I don't know, I'm sort of trying to get to some of the questions of Member Gale. Like, if it's to remove stuff, that's different than as to find further information about each topic. Like some of the questions you asked regarding the key system, the validity of it, where it's going to go, like all that will come back with a report from the chief when it's going to be initiated and implemented and with pricing on it. Like these are just their forecasts and their budget numbers. So I'm not sure if that's what we're looking at the referral, is to get further into detail of each component with that, or are we looking at changing the numbers?
Member Gale, and then I'll go to the chief.
Chair, my intentions are is to challenge and discuss anything there. So if it's something that we see that we think that should be held off because we're going into debt to finance it, it might not be as important as something else. Example, the mobile command center. I think that's a wonderful thing. I think we need something like that. Somebody else might not. So, but I'd like to have that open conversation and have time to digest it afterwards. And sometimes our conversation's one-on-one with the chief afterwards, and that tells us I'm wrong or I'm right or whatever. But we're not being afforded that opportunity by voting on this today. So I think if it goes to a finance committee meeting, we open it up to anything there, and the chief listens to that.
I will deal with, Member Eek, just hold for a second. The chief is next, please.
I think Ms. DiDonato DeCellis just wanted to clarify a point that Member D'Angelo had made.
So, Member D'Angelo, the initiation process no longer happens. When the capital budget is approved, the funding's initiated now. The region changed that probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and we changed it the year after. So they actually did it for a couple years where they got the approval and they initiated the capital at the same time. And then we changed it about a year or two after them. But the way it's done is it's approved and the funding's initiated at the same time. We still have to come, just to be clear though, we do still have to come back to you if it's over the limit still of $100,000 for actually purchasing a piece of equipment. We still have to come to you for that, but the initiation that we used to do doesn't happen anymore.
Just before I turn it to Member Eek, our motion of referral is quite proper. It allows us to have a full discussion. And at that session, if for some reason we find an item in here that needs to be a quote adjusted or removed or something like that, that is the preview of that committee. So we can make those changes on September 12th. And then when we finalize this, the region will get our final document. Chief, or sorry. Anything more from Lisa or not? Okay, sorry. Member Eek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with the motion before us by Vice Chair Steele and Member Gale. I hope the wording in there includes that the draft goes forward to meet the date requirements at the region. This further discussion in September are really building blocks to try to zero in on getting the best budget forward without any hiccups later. I mean, we'll have an opportunity for revision. But I think as Member Gale has indicated, we need to have the opportunity for input that supports our staff. Thank you.
Okay, so that motion referral has already been passed. Unless there's any other items, Vice Chair Steele.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the chief or your staff. At the City of Port Colborne, we always, every year we get a list of debentures and when they started and then when they mature, so that as we go forward, we can plan that when we're going to purchase something that we have to debt finance it, we know by a certain date that that money that's already in our budget can be applied to the new debt, as opposed to going back to the taxpayer and saying we're going to add another 10% or whatever the number may be. Can we get that list through the region with regards to police services only, with what debt we have on the books now, the mature dates as we move forward?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that's something that we've put a request into the region to obtain.
Okay, because I think that'd be important for our finance meeting. So as we go forward, we know that, you know, there's money in the budget currently, which is the region's total budget. As we move forward and things are falling off and we want to put something on, that in essence, it's not a tax increase to the ratepayer. You're just using the money that's already currently there. So if we could have that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving along, our next item is number 153. It's the rotation tow truck list process. I need a mover and seconder to put this on the floor. Moved by Member McKendrick, seconded by Member Gibson. Chief?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is, we're bringing this to the board's attention as a result of what's contained in the board bylaw. We believe that a change in the process through an RFP will streamline the process and ultimately represents probably the most transparent method of being able to address this issue moving forward.
Thank you. Member Gale.
So Chair, I'm sorry, I'm back to process again. This should have gone to a committee as well, because I feel that the public, especially the tow truck operators, should have a chance for input on something like this. I'm not saying it's a wrong decision, but there's private companies out there that have provided services like this that might have input to this, and we're making a decision at this meeting to authorize the police to go to an RFP for it. I think that's wrong in our process, because when we've had open meetings with tow truck operators, taxi companies, that they've jammed this room and the old James Street room with comments and criticisms. So I have other questions on this if this is not being referred again to another date, because I think the tow truck operators should have a chance on something like this.
We dissolved our licensing committee, which was where those meetings took place. Those.
So can you put that into finance or anything so we can have it at a comfortable room to have a free forum? Well, I guess I have a question. Was this brought to the tow truck operators or to the public in general?
No, but just to clarify, this is specifically related to incidents where we request a tow for our vehicles, not
And I understand that
necessarily for
totally,
members
yeah.
of the public. Okay.
I understand that totally, but these are companies that have made money or serviced the region forever. And I don't think it should just be taken away without us leaving it to an open forum on it or the public to talk about something like this, because we know the schmozzle we're in at the region by going to one company that helps the region with garbage pickup, and now we're diversifying that. Sometimes it's not the right way to go. It might be better for the police, but it might not be better for the taxpayer on this, or the companies that have serviced us all along by marrying ourselves to one company on this. Again, these are conversations that should have been had at committee, I feel.
I have two more speakers. Then
Sure.
I have Member Eek and then Member Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Some of my thoughts with respect to this, I understand you're deviating. This is something new for us as we look after our own service requirements for vehicle separate from the region. I've viewed before in the past where the need, and that's what you're looking for in the RFP, is that of those that supply services to the community with respect to towing, do they meet the requirements that you need or expect when an RFP is issued, such as segregation or putting them aside, lockable, many issues that I see in the report that are required. If you once establish a listing of those that meet it, then you can issue an RFP that will put all those that can compete in a fair and equitable opportunity to bid for this service. So those are just comments from myself, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Member Gibson.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. The RFP process will provide every operator in the Niagara region an opportunity to gather the information about how the tow system will work. They'll apply or not apply according to what the RFP is asking for. And you could, if you're concerned about spreading it out, we could look at a 2-year term. and it's reexamined every 2 years, and different tow companies have opportunities to apply every second year. But within the RFP itself is all the information required for any tow company to decide whether they wish to apply for the RFP or apply for the position or not. So I think that's actually the best way to do it. Public consultation on an issue as every day as who tows vehicles on behalf of the police, I don't think that's required. And this is just sort of one of those issues that we need to get done and get fulfilled. Thank you.
Any other comments? Member Gale.
Chair, I'm going to come back at you, and I'm just going to say we've eliminated debate on this. Really, I shouldn't be talking for a second time by bringing this to full board on something like this now. Plus, we're a disservice to the public by not putting this out there for them to come back. If, like Member Gibson says, we allow it to go to an RFP, that's a conclusion. The RFP, whoever wins the RFP, is the winner of this. And we've eliminated debate from us. We've eliminated the public to voice on it. We represent the community. We don't represent the service. We don't represent the region. And the community is got a disservice by us handling things this way. I understand licensing is gone. So let's put it on another committee. We'll tackle into finance or whatever. But for us to have this come up to us with possibly some tow truck operators or somebody who's made a livelihood, and I know it's not fully doing that, but even if it's 5% of their business, 1% of their business, they should have the opportunity to ask us, hey, I can't possibly do this. I'm a one tow truck company that's been working for 60 years, and I'll never be able to get involved in this business, so thank you for me losing it. Even though I've tried hard and I've done well, and I've worked out of Waynfleet or worked out of Fort Erie or whatever the case may be. But we've eliminated the debate by handling it this way. This should have gone to a committee. Thank you.
Just a question through the chief to the service. You're looking for more than one successful company. Is that correct? Is that how I read this? Or are you looking for a single RFP to go out and a single winner?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it may be one or both of those scenarios, depending on how the RFP is drafted. It may be that the successful bidder subcontracts with multiple tow companies in order for them to secure the contract. Obviously we have a big region, so we just feel that this represents a consistent approach for us to ensure particularly the secure towing secure storage compound facilities. We have seen that not all are created equal, and so we want to ensure, as you can appreciate, for some of the homicide investigations and some of those more sensitive investigations, we want to ensure that our vehicles are being stored so that evidence is not going to be compromised.
And I would also say the main premise is that no one can bid on this unless they've already a regional licensed tow truck. Just as they were licensed by us, they're now licensed by the region. Is that correct?
We haven't developed the RFP yet, but there will be certain requirements that they all have to meet.
Thank you. Member DeAngelo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The paragraph that really strikes me here that supports the chief here is the intent of this report is to seek board approval to have subject matter experts and internal stakeholders prepare an RFP that capitalizes on best practices in police towing. So to me, that's the essence of what the report's going to be coming back. I think the only thing that might satisfy some of the other board members is prior to that RFP being released, that it come back to the board as a draft document to be looked at. And that could answer a lot of the questions I'm hearing today. So I don't know if that, through you, Mr. Chair, if that's something the chief would be prepared to do prior to it being released in final terms.
Thank you. Member Gale.
I agree totally with him. If it comes back to the board, and certainly the chief would probably be looking for outside input from other tow companies, that's great if it comes back to us that way. But I thought we were approving an RFP going out there on this. And maybe the chief, maybe we as board members will get the public saying no or yes on this, meaning tow truck operators, whatever. But I like that, what Member D'Angelo came up with.
So we could, we have a mover and seconder on. So the only, would be maybe a slightly friendly amendment to that would be saying that the RFP comes back to the board before release for discussion. So Member McKendrick and Member Gibson would have to agree with that. I see a nod in the affirmative.
I would support that.
Okay, thank you. So, show of hands in favor with that's, sorry,
Oh,
Member D'Angelo.
I just wanted some input from the chief on that. That was my second part of that suggestion. Thank you.
Chief? Member D'Angelo was asking for a response on the idea of bringing it back to us, I believe.
That's, yeah, just looking for your input on that.
That's not a problem. We can certainly do that.
Show of hands? Okay, that item's dealt with. Number 154, provincial-wide hospital transfer care protocol. I need a mover and seconder, please. Member Eek, seconded by Member Vice Chair Steele. Discussion on item 154. Chief?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so you require there was, or you remember, sorry, there was a much media attention with regards to a province-wide hospital transfer of care protocol back several weeks ago. We have been working closely with NHS in the development of our own protocol in-house, and quite frankly, what we have previously worked out with the NHS mirrors what was announced provincially, so we're ahead of the curve in that respect.
Okay, thank you. So the report, the notes that I had made in this was just basically, I thought, and as you concurred, we already had something in place, and based on your report, our average time is about 83 minutes in there. So I'm assuming there must be a number of jurisdictions in Ontario that maybe aren't as fortunate as we are to have that relationship. And hence, this is why this document, which is supported by a number of agencies, including the OACP, put this one forward. Is that my assumption correct?
That's correct.
Board members, questions? Member McKendrick?
Not a question, more of a comment of support that I've seen the relationship between the NRPS and the Niagara Health System, and I would agree that it's not a concern for us and we are ahead of the curve and that no further action is necessary.
Thank you. I know we have a mover and seconder already. Show of hands in favor. Thank you. Item 155, RFP, Contract Award Employee Content Management System, Health Check and Upgrade. Mover and seconder to put on the floor, please. Member Gibson, seconded by Member McKendrick. Chief?
The report, I think, is self-explanatory. The recommendation is that the contract be awarded to TELUS, and that you approve the award of the Enterprise Administrative Voice Telephone System in that amount of $75,656.
Yeah, I know he is.
$55?
So I think you may have commented on
I'm
the.
sorry, I've
Yeah.
jumped ahead to the
Journal.
next report. Hold my comments on that report. So again, this is self-explanatory, I believe, in terms of what we're asking the board to approve the selection of Cadence as the preferred vendor for the Health Check and Upgrade Enterprise Content Management System.
Any board members' questions? I have one. Just in clarity on this, and it's probably just, I guess, sort of the wording. Your sort of use of the word health check is more of a system that's basically monitoring your server network to ensure that they're up and running. Is that the baseline and correct? Am I correct in making that?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So this is really evaluating the initial installation of the enterprise content management system, which is open text, taking a look at the configuration, the way it was set up initially, and prepare it for a successful upgrade. So yeah, it's monitoring the and evaluating the initial installation and preparing it to be upgraded.
So in moving forward with the Enterprise Content Management, or ECM system, which is going to be service-wide, in moving to that, you're trying to eliminate paper being routed from person A to person B and getting reports in and et cetera. My question is the growth potential, because I see a lot of future in this. To me, this is a very important item. I would have liked this to have come to the Technology Committee, but that's fine. In the future, I would hope these items do. Moving forward, does this system have the flexibility to expand as this police service expands, or as we add on additional users and units to it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it does, but I'd like to ask Gary to come up and provide additional feedback. He's spearheading the information management governance, so he's in the process of doing that, so he can speak to it.
Good morning. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that is the plan, that it is going to be extended throughout the service, and it does have the capacity to grow as we go forward.
So just as an example, this is a report that was prepared probably initially by you, I suspect. Obviously in Word or some other document component. It's forwarded through a number of people for approvals and that, and eventually it comes to the board. Will we be able to start receiving these truly electronically so that it doesn't actually get printed out somewhere?
Yes, that is the plan.
And how soon do you expect, for example, units within headquarters to be on this? There's method to my question because we're hoping to sometime in next year move to a board system that allows us to get away from having paper and getting to an electronic board meeting.
So the plan is we're doing a complete inventory service-wide. We're currently working on HR and finance. We have put some of the Police Service Board reports into this open text application with the plan that we can start putting everything in there, share everything electronic, and look at the single source of truth. So we have one version of the document, and then everybody can share and link to the same document.
Okay, thank you. Questions by board members? Okay, show of hands in favor of moving forward. Thank you. And just a note, if these items could come to the Technology Committee in the future for discussion, that would really help. Next item is 156. It's an award of contract for Enterprise Administrative Voice and Telephone System. I need a mover and seconder to put on the floor. Moved by Vice Chair Steele, Member Gibson. Chief?
I have no further comments from my original comments.
We'll just play the tape back. Reasonably straightforward. I'm glad you, again, very competitive item here as to who you had bidding on this. Any questions from board members? Not seeing any. Show of hands in favor. Thank you. Item dealt with. Item 157. A mover and seconder to put this on the floor is supporting United Way.
So moved, Chair.
Moved by Member DeAngelo, seconded by Member Eek. Always an excellent organization. Supported this for a number of years in the past. Chief, any additional comments? Okay, thank you. I think we all know the work that they do and United Way does, and it's a vital part of our community in that. Show of hands in favor. Thank you. Our next item is it? It is. Unless there's any new business in the public side from members. Member Gale?
If Gary Holman's still here, or did he walk out? I was going to ask him how the vulnerable sector timetable is working now, because I had two counselors at the region come to me to complain, and I asked them to send me emails, but they didn't, so I didn't follow up on them. One was told it was 6 weeks, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, we were told it was 5 weeks a month ago. So I'm just wondering how it stands. Chief?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I received an update through Gary just last week, actually. So just to sort of highlight the volume that are coming forward, just last week, they processed 1,000 record checks applications. So that's in 1 week. They've been able to streamline and get additional resources into the records unit, and it's now sitting at 5 weeks.
Any game plan, Chief? Because I was hoping it would be less than that by now, and I understand we're always going to have volume, but can you give us some light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, the light at the end of the tunnel, is that software solution that we're working towards. We're in the final stages of getting approval through the RCMP. In the interim, we are training additional staff to, obviously we want to, with the software solution, the goal is to try and automate the process. So I believe it's about 80% of the record checks would be automated so that none of our staff have to actually touch them. But in the interim, we are throwing additional staff resources and training them so that we recognize the impact that it's having on the community, and we are doing our best but we're also at a time where we're in a job posting freeze as well because of a bumping process. So that has sort of further aggravated the situation. We're working to have some additional temporary employees assist in that process to get down or to reduce the wait period.
So through you, Chair. So Chief, the next big one is people going back to university and hockey players and hockey and things like that with coaches and that coming up. I believe that's the next big crunch. Do you hope that this software will be in place in the next month? Because that's when we're going to get complaints coming to us again. I'm sorry, you better turn your mic on. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. We've had those very discussions with the RCMP about the workload that we anticipate coming our way, and we're working as quickly as we can to try to resolve it.
I'm sorry to pin you down. Do you hope to have it in the next month or so? Or I know you're working quickly, and I get that.
Yeah, the challenge we face is we don't make the decision, so
Is there some influence that the chair should have to send a letter to somebody saying, because it must happen throughout the province or the country even?
we have, I don't know that it would be of any benefit. We have had direct discussions with the people in the RCMP that we need to influence, that we need to secure their support. The issue is that they need to go to Treasury Board of Canada. So they don't actually, they are the administrators, but they are not the final decision makers. So we have discussed it with the people in the RCMP that discuss it with Treasury Board.
So Chief and Chair, should we be proactive on this? And the associations for hockey in our communities and other things that are coming up, tell them now that there's a 5-week backup on it. Be prepared. If you want to have coaches in September, October, you might want to be proactive on it. Can we not send an email out on something like that, or am I wrong?
Probably through the chief's office, we could probably put something out on social media.
Yes.
We can absolutely do that and get that message out through the various social media platforms we have. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We can get that message out.
So Chief, I'm going to ask you to please, I know you do
And our
keep a
website,
record.
sorry, too.
I'm sorry?
Our website as well. We can put it on our website.
Okay, please, if you don't mind, give me a record of it. I'm not on social media, on Facebook and stuff like this, but I just, when somebody complains to us in 4 weeks or something like this that has happened, we can say, hey, on middle of August or 1st of August, we sent this out to everybody. Is nobody paying attention? Because that's what happened a couple years ago to the new board members, and I believe it was Niagara College, but I could be wrong in this, where the instructor told the students, get there and get your vulnerable sector checks, and some of them waited till the end, and they were refused to get into that class. And it's a tough price to pay when you have to spend another year for something like that, but thank you.
Member Gibson?
Thank you, Chair, and through you, Member Gale spoke to the point I was going to speak to. This is an annual event, it seems, right across the country. Example, university students come from another university somewhere else in the country. They come back home, they have a summer job. Indice checks require local indice checks, which means it has to go to whatever province in the country, which slows the whole process down. one of the things Member Gill alluded to it was simply education that instead of waiting until May, when you're starting work in 2 weeks, you actually need to start much earlier. And employers being notified of that as well would assist greatly in moving that forward so that in those jobs where people are in that vulnerable sector, that they can just step right into their jobs. So it's really about the public consuming knowledge on it and understanding it. So thank you.
Member Eek?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As our police services are the stakeholders in this, do we feel that because this need for approvals is right across Canada, as Member Gibson said, that do we feel that we are following the best practice in terms of the process to achieve the outcomes in a timely fashion?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have confidence that not only are we following the best process, the process that we are about to embark upon is, I don't want to say bleeding edge, but it's cutting edge, and we are the first service of our size to try to implement this technology to deal with the issues that Member Gale has raised a number of times.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Member D'Angelo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm supportive of Councillor Gale in the terms of being proactive and letting associations, sporting associations, especially hockey, know that they need police checks. A lot of the coaches are selected in May and June, and they wait till September to get their police check to start October. So even if we could direct mail the presidents of the associations, there shouldn't be a lot of them, maybe 11 to 15 of them, and just give them a quick email to remind them, to remind their coaches, because that will go a long way, because they have plenty of time to do it. It's just that they wait to the end to do it, because many of the travel teams, many of the select teams, house league teams, sometimes they wait, but a lot of the coaches are usually pre-selected by June for the following year, so it could be helpful if it's sent to the president of the association.
Chief, if you could, I'm assuming either through records, or your office or somewhere, we would probably know who the associations are. There's probably a dozen to 15 in the region, and maybe that could also get a targeted email.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do that already, and we can certainly reinforce that messaging. A lot of them are through the universities as well. As an example, nursing students are a common number of, in some cases, procrastinators that don't get they're informed early by the schools, but unfortunately we have some that procrastinate, and we'll do our best to get that messaging out there.
Surely, I mean, we have relationships, very good relationships with Niagara College and Brock. So if that, as you say, can be reinforced through the channels that have students that are going into, requiring the check for student employment or as part of a co-op program or whatever the circumstances are, that goes a long way. Any other new businesses? Vice Chair Steele.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll go to the chief on this. But Member Gale had forwarded an email from Councillor Height of St. Catharines with regards to a meeting of the Joint Neighborhood Committee, I guess they're called, in St. Catharines. I did forward this to you yesterday, so I know you know what I'm talking about, to give you a heads up. Can you just comment on this? Because it's very similar to some committees we have in Port Colborne, and I'll let you go from there.
Thank you very much. So I'll start first by just talking about the issues in downtown St. Catharines. They're complex, they're multifaceted, they involve a number of issues, mental health, addictions, poverty, homelessness. There are numerous social service agencies that are located in the downtown core. There are numerous methadone clinics that are also located in the downtown core, supervised injection sites. They all cater to a vulnerable population. This has resulted in a large segment of the vulnerable population being in the downtown core. We are one of the many, many stakeholders that are part of developing a solution to address this issue. The inspector for one district, who is Inspector Marco Gianico, he was off on leave last week, but his acting inspector, Bill Harris, attended the meeting that occurred on Tuesday evening that was hosted by City of St. Catharines councilors Kerry Porter and Matt Sisko. We attend those meetings regularly. And again, we are very much alive to the issues that are taking place in downtown St. Catharines. Quite frankly, they're taking place across other municipalities in the region. They're taking place across municipalities throughout the entire province. This is not unique to Niagara. It's not unique to St. Catharines. I think we're encouraged by some of the recent announcement in Niagara with regards to the national initiative to end chronic homelessness. And certainly homelessness is a major factor that's contributing to the issue. And in St. Catharines and other municipalities across the province, we work very closely with Kathy Cousins from the region, and we will continue to work closely with Kathy and in the various social agencies to address the issues in downtown St. Catharines.
Thank you, and I do thank Member Gale for sending it to me. If you could just let our representative on this particular committee know the questions that he can address those at their next meeting, or beforehand if he wishes.
It certainly will. I'm not sure, like I know that Bill Harris, Acting Inspector Bill Harris, attended the meeting. There were a number of public residents that were there, and he fielded a number of questions. I'm not sure if those questions that you forwarded were already asked of him or addressed, but we'll forward them along.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Not seeing any other new business, then we are adjourned in the public session. We'll take a 15-minute break and reconvene in confidential. Thank you.